Well, I think we're live, everyone. Hello, good morning or good evening, wherever you are. It's Tim Topham here. Today's chat is a little bit different because I've got a very special guest who I'll introduce to you in just a moment, who you can see on screen, hopefully right now. It's all about the big picture of group piano teaching and the kinds of impacts that it can possibly have on your business and your studio. And this is going to be perfect if you've already started teaching groups and you're looking to expand perhaps your teaching into a sort of a wider area, or perhaps you've got a huge waiting list and you're not quite sure which road to take next as you build and grow. So today we're discussing what's the best way to expand a successful piano studio and how does group teaching fit into that mix. So if you're just getting started in group teaching, or even not even there, you're just considering that it might be something you want to consider or an option that you've got for yourself, then I've got you covered with that conversation too, because on Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, and that's Friday, 11 a.m. here in Australia, I'm chatting to one of my InnerCircle members, Heather Nanny, who has just spent the US summer converting over to groups after months of planning. So we're going to use that as a case study. We're going to find out exactly how she did it, the things that worked, the things that didn't, the emails she sent, all that kind of good stuff. And that's going to be coming up live a little bit later this week. So whether you're new to group teaching, just getting started, or already running a big academy, I know that both today's and Friday's talk will be really interesting and useful to you. My guest today is co-founder and director of Forte School of Music, which is a music school network that teaches over 5,000 students on a whole variety of instruments, both here in Australia and in Europe. He's been teaching group lessons for 28 years and has spoken at conferences around the world, showing teachers how effective group teaching can be. He also happens to be a good friend of mine. You will have seen him on the podcast a couple of times. We've run events together, and he's one of the expert teachers in my community. Welcome, Paul Myatt.
Hello, Tim.
We had some delightful technical fun just before the call, so apologies everyone that we are 15 minutes late if you are live on this call today. I can see there's a few people watching, so hopefully we haven't upset your evening or dinner plans or breakfast plans, whatever it is, too much. We'll get stuck into it straight away, I think. Paul, you've been teaching group for quite some time now. And not only have you been teaching group, but you've been able to build a network of group teaching studios, not just in Australia, but around the world. So I really want to dig into how you went about this and how it all began. So when you first got started as a piano teacher, why did you decide to build your business on a group teaching format, if indeed you did?
Well, one of the things I think is really important about group teaching is that it's a much more musical experience. So children really get an experience of playing together. And I think that is one of the really important things about music, that we get to play together. And I always put it down to, when I was a kid, playing sport, and, people would go and play, especially in Australia, we play sport all the time. And, right. Kids love playing sport in teams like the soccer team, and it's around the world. Everyone loves soccer or netball or whatever they're doing. And I think kids love learning music in a group, and that's why I think, some of the band programs, kids will play in bands right up until they're finishing school. And traditionally, as piano students, we sit in a room, we never play with anyone else. We never learn to hear or perform with anyone else. I mean, and occasionally you might do duets or something like that. But there's not that opportunity. And I think group teaching really gives you that opportunity.
Right, yeah, I agree. I actually interviewed Susan Ogilvie for a podcast interview coming up, and she's very big in the world of clavinovas and keyboard ensembles. And I mentioned some of your arrangements, and she just, it was idea after idea of how many benefits come out of having kids play together in a group. Some of them I hadn't even thought of. I mean, she's convinced me completely about its merits. But that's just that idea of community, and not just community, but kids getting to play together and therefore feel beats together and hear and understand the mix and balance. So some people have melody, some people, all these kind of things too, which you just never get when you're stuck in a studio with one student at a time.
Exactly. And I think, I mean, I'm in the process of writing books, so I printed out a few pages.
Now, this was news to me too, by the way. So what's your book going to be on? All about group teaching, is it?
All about group piano teaching. And but it would just, one of the things that we're talking about in our book is that the benefits are for all stakeholders. The students, well, we know some of the benefits I've just spoken about, but also for parents, coming along to lessons and getting to participate with their children. Because often in a one-on-one private lesson, the parent may sit in, but often they don't. And I highly recommend parents do actually sit in with class lessons and group lessons, because they learn along too, and then they're more committed to the learning process. And let's face it, mums and dads are the key to the success of children learning music, because, and even a 12-year-old is going to need that push from their mother going, have you done your piano practice yet? They don't do it without some sort of, that's why parents are there. They're there to help and support their children. So I think you actually,
unlike other studios, you actually have the parents sitting next to the child at the piano in your classes, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a video of me teaching on your side. I might put a link to it after we finish the Facebook Live, so people can have a look at what we do. Obviously, that's teaching children of a very young age, but I teach kids up to, I used to, until they finish school, high school. One's just gone to, he was in class until year 11. They usually, by HSC, they're going, I'm too busy to do 2 classes a week.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a really important factor too. And that's a bit different again. Not everyone does that, having parents in the room too. That's another way that you're different.
Yeah, and then of course, in terms of for the students, we talked about the power of the ensemble. So learning to play together, but also there's the confidence of, in a group situation, kids will sing more easily because there's safety in numbers. But also they might have to get up and play in front of the other kids. And just 2 weeks ago, I had a mum come up to me and talk about her son, who's now, I don't know, the year 4, person, whatever, at school, like they're the classroom captain or something like that, and they have to talk in front of the class and things like that. And his mum said it's because he's been in those piano lessons since he was 4 years old. He's got this confidence that he can get up and do this stuff.
Yeah, that certainly wouldn't come from just the odd recital twice a year or once a year.
No.
What about from the business owner's perspective, the studio owner? What are some of the benefits there?
Well, obviously, you have a many-to-one relationship. So if you can charge, so it's beneficial for both the parents and the teacher. You can charge less per lesson, but the teacher's income is greater.
So for the parents, they're paying less because there's more people in the class, but the teacher is actually more per hour spent teaching, right?
Exactly. So obviously there's things that you're going to require for that, and there are expenses on that. So for example, all of the Forte schools have premises, so you have to pay for those premises, but and it's very difficult to do group at home. More than 1 or 2, maybe 2, 3 students. You couldn't do like a whole class of 8 students at home, because you probably have local council issues, with parking and the number of people you're allowed to have in your house for your own business and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you're saying even if you've got a big enough space, it's important to consider the impact of parking and traffic and all that kind of stuff, and you don't want to upset neighbours. Yeah,
absolutely. So one of the zoning is really important for that sort of thing.
Now, I can see there's a few people on live. Thank you very much for joining us. Do say hi if you join live, and say hi if you're watching the replay as well. And any questions you've got for Paul, He is an absolute superstar on this topic. So if you're interested in it, please pop a question in. Oh, we've got a thumbs up from someone floating across the screen. That's very good. Thank you. I love thumbs up and love hearts floating across. So this is a new system I'm using. So I'm watching my webcam, which is up here. I'm watching Paul, who's down here, and I'm trying to focus on the comments coming through here. So it's working well so far. So Paul, what about for teachers who are, actually, before I go on to that, how did you start with the group teaching process? Were you originally a one-on-one teacher and then you got 2 students at a time and then 3 and 4, or did you just go, bam, I'm going to teach 20 kids at once?
Well, I think in our podcast we mentioned to you, we originally were Yamaha Music Schools. So I had that experience. I worked for Yamaha, but I was a one-on-one teacher before that. And so what we have done is take we had written our courses and materials, but we took what you would call today a music learning approach, what I would call a offshore work / Kadai / Delcroze approach to learning, and use that. So what's very important is the movement, the singing, and the natural learning process of listen, sing, play, read, write. So once you implement those things, everything else tends to fall into place.
And I mean, even just having the parent sitting next to and learning with the child, I mean, that's a bit of a Suzuki approach, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like you've got everything in there. And that's why I love having you on the podcast and things, because everyone says, oh my goodness, Paul has so many great ideas. And it's because you've been able to distill all these different approaches into the method that works for you. And I encourage teachers around the world to do that. Use a bit of this, use a bit of that. Use what works in your teaching.
Absolutely. And I think that, we're very lucky with our organisation, is that we have a lot of people who input ideas as well. So it's not just me. We've got a whole team of people who go, hey, why don't we try this differently? Or why don't we, I've tried it like this, or have you even tried it like this? Which is a bit like your inner circle, and why that's such a good thing to be a part of as well.
Yeah. So there are going to be teachers who are going to be watching this or the replay who might be at this precipice of their business where they have too many students to teach themselves and are wondering, or they've got a big waiting list and they're wondering, do I hire more teachers and build an academy of one-to-one teaching, or do I start teaching my students in group and then possibly do what you've done and have multiple group teachers? So what advice would you give, and what do teachers need to consider before making a decision?
When you have, say, 40 or 50 students, the challenge is always going to be is that people hate change. And change is one of those things that I don't know if you've ever heard of the change curve, and taking people, or it sort of goes like that. So, the change curve for people's learning is quite challenging, I think, from going from a one-on-one situation